Hey everyone, this is JG, and today we're going to talk about Chen 3, aka Chen the Dawnstreak. Chen is nominally one of the main protagonists of Arc Knights, and just like Amiya, we now have 3 versions of her, at least 2 of which are pretty forgettable. Hypergryph did her dirty once again. This is definitely the best Chen yet, and to be sure she really stood out, they drop her in a banner next to Wang? Come on. Chen, girl. If they treat you like this, they don't love you. Finally, this Chen is actually legitimately good, and yet she also manages not to live up to expectations. Chen looks kind of like a nuker at first. In fact, she's explicitly tagged as a nuker in the operator screen. But today I'm going to explain why she's not a very good nuker, and show you what she is good at instead. Let's start off with these talents. Talent 1 boosts her attack and attack speed, and makes her deal weakness damage. This is a weird one for a nuker. Her skill has a 580% attack multiplier, so it's basically always going to choose physical damage against anything that doesn't die immediately. Talent 2 lets her regenerate HP and gain dodge when she's not taking damage. This one is also very weird for a nuker because long-term sustain isn't really interesting to a nuker. Nukers need to go toe-to-toe with bosses and survive long enough to deal their full damage, so they care a lot about short-term survivability, but not so much about topping up their HP after the boss is dead. And gaining dodge stacks only when you're not taking damage would be great if most bosses just gave up on attacking you after one hit. It feels like there's a whole lot of wasted potential in this kit. And in a game that has been power creeping like it's going out of style, this nuke is kinda lame. Let's walk through it. The first part is that her attack range increases, and her attacks hit up to 4 enemies 3 times each at a 2.1 multiplier. It's fairly short at 20 seconds, so the damage per skill cycle is about 60% of what you get from Waynar, who is himself not really the nuking king anymore. This isn't awful, but it's not brand new 6-star nuker in 2026 good. And a very serious limitation here is the range. Chen covers 8 tiles, Tamwainar's 14, Sakiko's 16, or Hoshi or Premanic's Altar's 21. For something that hits multiple targets at once, range is a huge contributor to your actual damage dealt. The damage here is just okay, and the range is downright bad. There is a second part though. She launches this dragon that wanders the map while the skill is up. It turns right whenever it hits a barrier, dealing either 580% of attack or 6% gravity damage, whichever is greater. I think it's the first thing in the game that can do gravity damage, but a 6% gravity is not all that impressive on its own. Even against a beast like Manbear Pig, it's worth 9,000 damage, not quite 2x of what it does by default. Against the insanely high HP Stronghold Protocol bosses, it gets as high as 36,000 damage, but that's still only about 2/3 of the damage her regular slashes can do across her skill cycle. This one is only super interesting if you can stack up a bunch of hits from it, and doing that is just way more trouble than it's worth. The dragon only makes right turns and it can't leave the map, so it'll eventually get stuck in some sort of loop. It has a big hitbox, but can only damage each enemy once for each time it turns. If you can get it into a 1x3 box, you can achieve 20 hits from it inside her skill cycle for 96,000 weakness damage, or a little more if they have more than 100,000 HP, which, let me be clear, even many bosses do not. That hits for about 75% of what Moinar does in a skill cycle. If you can find a 1x2 box to trap them in, it climbs just a bit higher than Waynar. Now obviously, the dream is to stack both of these things at the same time. Flashes and dragons simultaneously, making Chen a double nuker. If the stars align and you pull that off, he bursts really high, almost 80% of Wang's DPS, if you're keeping score, and I can think of at least one person who is. That sounds great on paper, but the realistic tactical opportunities to do that are extremely narrow. You can only max the dragon's damage if the map allows for it, by finding just the right place to aim it. You need the boss to walk through that spot, and then you need them to stay there for 20 seconds. And finally, you need that spot to also overlap with Chen's own attack range, so her slashes also hit them. And as we just discussed, that attack range is very narrow. The ideal positioning for launching the dragon may not be the ideal positioning for aiming Chen. You can put both right on top of each other if you just put Chen inside a tiny box, and can then convince the hardest bosses in the game to get in the box and hold still for 20 seconds. But that strategy has a fatal flaw. The boss isn't just trapped in a box with Chen. Chen is trapped in a box with the boss. Targets you want to hit for 200,000 damage are usually targets you don't want to stand right next to for 20 seconds. Patriot is an exception, for like this one brief section of his level. When he wakes up, there's hell to pay. You can use Nasti's tower to manipulate the map a little for a better setup, or use something like Hoshi Altar or TD to make Chen unkillable while she blocks the boss. But if we're talking about great combos you can pull off with 2 6 stars and a full minute to prepare, there are generally some better options. Chen's peak performance is a situational gimmick that rarely shows up in normal play. You'll get either a good nuke with the dragon or a good nuke from her attacks, but not both. Even when you get both, it's in the same ballpark as Moinar, Lemoen, Sakiko, or Wong, not in a whole new category. It does cycle quickly, but it's hard enough to get this ideal setup to last for 20 seconds. You shouldn't count on it lasting for 65 seconds so you can run it twice. When it comes to other good nukers like Moinar, Sakiko, Lemoen, Exuzie Altar, or Wong, they're not nearly so difficult to set up. You don't need to think about which way the dragon will turn. They have a wide range. You just point them towards the boss and click their skill. The reality is, Chen will usually do pretty good damage, but in a fairly narrow range. She'll show up in meme fastest clear videos, but she's not really an everyday nuker. Her S2 is also a little bit interesting. It only hits one target at a time, but that's fine for boss killing. It cycles quickly, so the long-term average DPS is quite good, without any of the aiming difficulty of S3. It has this interesting gimmick that she relocates to the last target's location if they're not dead. That's a cute trick that might occasionally be able to be exploited. Against bosses, though, it has the delightful property of placing Chen directly underneath the boss, so she can be instantly murdered. So she doesn't impress me as a nuker. With that analysis done, I was fully prepared to make a whole video telling you that Hypergryph made a third lackluster Chen. But when I was filming my background footage, I discovered an unexpected strength. There's something I expected Chen to be bad at, but she managed to be surprisingly good at it instead. Chen is an arts fighter, and that's a subclass that I don't generally love. I'm not a huge fan of any of the Block 1 ground classes. Fighters, arts fighters, solo blades, dreadnoughts, duelists, and chargers. Merchants are bad too, but Block 1 is not why. Executors are a special case. Even with high attack, it is really hard to hold a lane with one of these. Fighters are at least cheap, but for 20 or more DP, you'd really like a unit to be able to handle their corner of the map effectively. You want to save their skill for an elite, not just for 2 hounds that were standing too close together. Of course, you can cover that weakness with the rest of your team in various ways, but the fact that you need to inherently reduces the number of situations where you can rely on the operator. If they're not reliable, you'll use them less, and get less return on the resources you spent building them. So Arts Fighter isn't a class that I'm excited about. And before you say, what about Surtur? Let me be clear. Surtur is not an Arts Fighter. Surtur is an expensive executor. But when I tried to film examples of how poorly Arts Fighters hold their lanes, Chen just kept not leaking. By the skin of her teeth she'd pull through, and I don't even have her maxed or with her module yet. For fun, I tried Vina in the same places, and she leaked like a sieve, just the way I normally expect Block 1 units to. And this is where Chen's kit starts to make sense. There are several things here that make her a far better lane holder than other similar units. Those talents that aren't good for a nuker, that's because she's not a nuker. Her innate attack speed buff is a great start. When you have 2 enemies hit you at once, you need to pull off about 3 or 4 hits before they make it through your tile, and better attack speed makes a huge difference. That's how she catches some of these units just barely before they leak. Second, the weakness damage is a big help. It's not super interesting when you have a 5.8x multiplier on her dragon and physical damage is the only reasonable choice. But when you have a 1x multiplier against a random schmo, choosing the right damage type can get you a kill one hit faster, and that can make all the difference. Third, there's the self-sustain. Not that exciting for a nuker, but a really nice perk for a lane holder. And fourth, there's her skill. As I mentioned, it has a short duration and cycles quickly. As a nuker, you'd frequently rather have a skill that's longer and pumps out more damage. But for block 1 lane holders, your skill is your get out of jail free card. If a heavy enemy comes your way and you know you won't kill them before another enemy leaks, you can pop your skill on them. The trouble is, if you have Vina's skill that takes 50 seconds to charge, you may very well need the skill again before it's ready. Chen has half the downtime, and her dragon can clear faraway enemies and keep them out of her lane for a while before the next one reaches her. It's a big nuke just to use on a shield guard, but it charges up so quickly that you don't need to feel bad about using it to plug a leak. So as it turns out, Chen is a hell of a lane holder. And if that lane happens to include a boss, she can definitely give them some trouble. You may still need a supporting nuker, but having a lane holder that can pump 60k damage into the boss when they arrive and then dodge their first attack, that gives you a pretty good leg up on clearing the stage. While Chen's not quite the operator I was expecting when I dug into her, she's got some great utility that is worth your time. That's all I've got today. Please like and subscribe for more of my work. See you next time.